Hi everyone, welcome to another Ashtown Creations tutorial. My name is Stephanie, and in this video we are making the Saltwater shoulder bag from Needle and Anchor patterns. As with many of the patterns from Needle and Anchor, this bag has many variations and options. There are kangaroo pockets on both the front and the back of the bag. You can choose to do the opening on just one side or on both sides of the pocket. I chose to do both sides. For the closure, you have the choice of magnetic snap or a recessed zipper. Obviously, I did a recessed zipper. You have the choice of one shoulder strap or two handles. And there are three different options on how to attach them. I chose the single shoulder strap, and I have attached them with D-rings and a gate ring. On the inside of the bag, the instructions are for a zippered pocket on the lining and a divider pocket in the center. You can easily leave out the divider pocket, although it is part of the charm of this bag. There's lots of space on the other lining panel to add a slip pocket or a zipper pocket or both if that's what you want. If you would like to see a different combination, Brandy from Beans Bags and Handicrafts has done a tutorial as well with some different options for her bag. Go check out her channel. I will link it in the description box below. So for this bag, I used upholstery fabric and faux leather, both from Bordeaux fabrics. I do need to mention that I didn't interface my upholstery fabric, and I should have before I started sewing. I eventually did try to add some after, but it was difficult to add. So my quilting cotton that I've used is Essex linen from Kaufman's fabrics. I believe the color is Bordeaux. The lining fabric, so this teal color, is waterproof canvas I got from Pecana in Calgary, Alberta. All of my gorgeous matte black hardware and zipper tape is from Atelier Fiber Arts in Montreal, Quebec. I will add links for as many materials as I can find in the description box below. I will also add timestamps so you can jump to the section that you need. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and select notification bell to be notified when new content is available. Leave any questions or comments you have in the comment section below. I will do my best to respond as soon as I can. And I want to thank Carissa again from Needle and Anchor Patterns for allowing me to do this tutorial for you. All right, let's get sewing. All right, let's go through the pieces for the Saltwater shoulder bag. So I have my exterior panel A. This is what you will see on the outside, and I have used an upholstery fabric I got from Bordeaux for that. I also have facing panel B. So I've used, it's a quilting cotton. I'm trying to remember Kaufman, Robert Kaufman, and it looks, I will find what it is and I will put it in the description box below. I have interfaced this one with woven interfacing, and as you can see, I confused it because I didn't want to waste all of this on interfacing. So Kangaroo Pocket, exterior Kangaroo Pocket C. This is a faux leather from Bordeaux. It has a little texture to it. It actually came in a box matched with the upholstery fabric that I have. So yeah, kangaroo, I've got two pieces, so one for either side of the bag, and I have them interfaced with a Decaville light. And Kangaroo Pocket, this is the lining of the Kangaroo Pocket. Again, I used the quilting cotton, and it's interfaced with a woven interfacing. There's two pieces of those. Now the exterior panel underlay, so that hole we have in the exterior panel will be filled with this underlay. And I have used a quilting cotton again with woven interfacing. So for the exterior gusset, I'm using the faux leather. Just take that out. I'm using the faux leather again. I have two pieces using the faux leather from Bordeaux. I have interfaced it with Decaville light. So next is the lining top. So that I have chosen to do it with the faux leather again. It is interfaced with the Decaville Light. And now we have the lining bottom piece. There's two pieces for the lining bottom. This is a waterproof canvas. It is not Ottertex, but it is very similar. I got this from Pacana in Calgary, Alberta. So it feels very much, it's the same weight, it feels very much like Ottertex. It may be, they just don't advertise it as Ottertex, but it feels about the same. So that was lining bottom. Now I have the lining gusset. So the lining exterior, or the exterior gusset, I had in two pieces because I wanted the little seam down the center. So when I was cutting, I kind of messed up and cut my gusset piece in half, added the seam allowance and cut it in half. I shouldn't have done that. So you should have two lining gussets. I have 4 because I will be joining them in the center. But you should have 2 full length. This is the waterproof canvas again. Then we have the shoulder strap. It's going to be a double-sided shoulder strap. So I'll have the faux leather on one side and the upholstery fabric on the other. So I have a zipper, the zipper pocket facing piece. I have not marked it yet, but it needs to be marked with the box. I have a divider pocket. So I am doing the recessed zipper version. There are 2 versions. Actually, I'm sure there could be, 2 versions. You close with a snap or you close it with a recessed zipper. I've chosen to do recessed zipper. So when you're cutting out your interior pocket, be mindful of which version you're doing because there are 2 different sizes of pattern pieces for this. So I have chosen the recessed zipper pattern pieces, and I have the exterior will be in the upholstery fabric. I have 2 of those, and then the lining is in that quilting cotton interfaced with the woven interfacing, and there are 2 pieces of that. So just remember, if you're choosing to do magnetic snaps, make sure you choose the magnetic snap divider pocket pieces. All right, so for the shoulder strap connectors, I have 4 pieces. I've done them in the faux leather. I've also put a strip of Decaville Light down the center. Now onto the zipper. I have a couple little zipper tab pieces. I have the top of the pocket, and then I have the main lining of the pocket. And I'm probably going to be putting on an overlay over the zippered pocket. I like how that looks. I forgot to cut it out. That doesn't matter. It's not part of the pattern. It's just something I want to add separately. So, and the last pieces that I have are my recessed zipper panel pieces. So I have 2 of the faux leather, and then I have 2 of the quilting cotton. All right, for the zipper, I haven't cut it yet. I have this gorgeous wine colored zipper. It has actually matte black teeth. And I haven't cut it yet. I will do that before I get started. But so I have all my zipper. I have 3 of these gorgeous matte black zipper pulls. These are all from Atelier Fiber Arts. So I've got 3 of those. I'm going to be doing, so the closure, the strap things, there's a couple different options for the straps. You can use grommets, you can use D-rings with gate rings, or you can use, and that would be single strap each, or you can use, make 2 straps just using either a rectangle ring. I suppose you could do something else with those, but with rectangle rings inside for the handles if you choose to have 2 on the shoulder bag for it to open. So I have chosen the second option. I'm not doing grommets because I don't have any matte black grommets. So I am going to be doing the D-ring option, so the second one. So they have some gorgeous matte black D-rings. I have 4 of them. And in those, with those, I will be clipping on, how do I get this working? There we go. So I have some matte black gate rings. So I have 2 of those. So those will hook onto the D-rings on either side, and my strap will go from there. And I'll have a single strap. And the last piece that I see in this pile is my cork label, my Ashtown Creations cork label. So that, I think that's all the pattern pieces. So let's get sewing this bag. All right, we're going to get started with the Kangaroo Pocket on the exterior. So what we're going to do, this is the exterior piece, that's the faux leather, and this is my quilting cotton. And I'm going to just put them face down, or like right sides together, and then I'm going to clip around just to keep them together. I can probably do this without clipping, but it's a good habit to, if you need to, you can do it. All right, so I'm going to sew around, I've already done it to my other piece, I'm going to sew around this curved area with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So I've got it on a joining stitch, and I'm going to actually put it right faux leather side up. So this way that my feed dogs can help pull through the lighter fabric on the bottom. So 1/8 of an inch all the way around, and then we'll do the other one, and then we'll move on. Remember to back stitch at the start and end of your seam. And I'm using a 3.5 stitch length. There we go, we've done both pieces. Now I'm going to go around, yeah, there's some spots where I missed because my lining piece is a little bit smaller. So I think I'm actually going to try now that it's stitched down, it's probably not going to shift as much. So I am going to go around again, 1/8 of an inch from the fabric seam. So I'm going to do this, yeah, I'll do them, both of them, and then we'll be back. Alright, and there we go. All done. So now we're going to pull the flap out to the right side. So stick my hand in, push the end into my hand, and pull it through. And I'm just using my fingertips to push into the seam to try and get them to lie pretty flat. So now I'm going to roll it between my fingers until I get a nice edge, smooth edge, and now I'm going to clip. Once I've got it, I want to keep it that way, so I'll clip it in place. If you're doing all cotton, you can use an iron. This, I found when I was adding my Decaville to this faux leather that it can't handle a whole lot of heat. So I'm just going to use my hands to finger press this. Alright. We're going to stitch it at with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. It's actually a top stitch. So I'm going to set it at a number 5 stitch length, and I'm going to top stitch around this rounded edge. Alright, now that I've top stitched the edge, I'm just going to go back and I am going to baste this open edge because we don't need it open anymore. And again, basting is basically the same as top stitching. Usually use a longer stitch length, but it's more structural than decorative. Alright, there's one kangaroo pocket done. I will go ahead and do the other one off screen. Alright, the only thing I forgot to do was add my cork label to this piece if this is where I wanted it to go. I think I'm going to try and find another spot on the bag to put it, since I've already got it stitched together. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and do this one off camera, and then we can set aside the kangaroo pocket and move on to the exterior main panels. All right, one more thing we need to do before moving on from the kangaroo pocket is we need to put dots on our pad, on our piece, kangaroo pocket piece, according to the instructions. I'm not giving out the dimensions, you need the pattern for that. So these measurements are in the pattern. This is where we're going to have the opening for the kangaroo pocket. We need to stitch from one dot to the other, back stitching at the beginning and the end at 1/8 of an inch with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So we don't want to back stitch much because you're going to be able to see this is on the front of the bag. You're going to be able to see this, but we also want to make sure that this is for this is a decorative stitch. This isn't a functional stitch. It is a decorative stitch, but we still don't want them coming out. So one back. Try to only back stitch one stitch. There we go. And I'm going to go, and actually going to go one more back, 2 forward, and pull it out. Trim it off, trim all the threads. I'm going to pop, I'm going to just melt them with the lighter. Just don't hold it on too long because you don't want to melt your faux leather or your cotton. Anyways, repeat this step for all 4. Like if you're doing, you can do a pocket with only one side open. I have chosen to do it with both sides open. So I'm going to do the other 3 of these, and then we can set this aside and move on to the next step. All right, for this next section, we will be attaching the piece B, the facing piece B, with the exterior panel A. I have gone ahead already and clipped these, but what I've done is I've just stuck them right sides together and then clip them on the outside. We will be sewing around the ring on the inside. I didn't figure you needed to sit and watch me clip them, so now I'm going to set it at a 3.5 stitch length because we are really joining. And I'm going to start, so this piece across the top is called a bridge piece. It's there to keep everything from getting really wonky. So I'm going to actually start stitching across there first and then go down and around, trying to keep it all on my table. I'm actually going to start down on a straighter edge and then come up to it. Okay, so 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around the interior of this panel. Right, I'm going to go back, now that I've got it together. I think I was supposed to start and stop at these corners here, because this will eventually be cut off and I don't want these stitches coming out. So I'm just going to go back in and reinforce those stitches. And for the other one, then I will start at that. Start on either side. So I just want to reinforce these stitches. So, okay. And then I'll do the other side, and then I'll move on to the other piece. All right, there we go. So I don't know if you noticed my piecing on this part here, this facing part. It's just so that we can have a nice, we do this so we can have a nice clean edge on the inside. So there's no raw edges here. We don't have to turn this over and try and hem it, basically. It just creates a nice clean edge. But since this isn't going to be seen, I decided I was going to use up some of my scrap pieces of woven interfacing, because they're not cheap. So this is what some in the sewing community call frankenfusing, because it's like Frankensteining some fabric together, or some woven interfacing together, using up some scraps so there's less waste. Anyways, thought that was kind of neat. So I'm going to turn around and use my table view for the next step. All right, now we're going to continue on with the exterior panels and facings. So now that we've got both pieces stitched together all the way around, I'm going to take my snips, and right in the corners here, I'm going to do a tiny snip, trying not to cut the stitches. Okay, maybe not my snips. Going with my scissors. Going to do a little snip right into the corner. That should help it turn a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to turn it right sides out. It's going to be a little tricky, but okay, I'm going to, let's see, how am I going to do this? Using the iron, I'm going to just iron it, because I can use it on, I got cotton fabric and upholstery fabric. I'm okay to use it. So I just need to turn this whole thing so that the wrong sides are together and that the edges are nicely matched up. So I'm going to get a corner, and then I am going to clip it to try and keep it open. And I will do this all the way around with this piece, and I will do the same for the other piece. All right, when I went back and did the back stitching, I've got a pucker in it. I think that'll be fine. It's on the inside. It's not puckered on the outside much. So it's on the inside, and this part up here gets cut off and will be hidden by the front flap. So it will be fine. Would like it to sit a little more flat than this. All right, there we go. I will go ahead and do the other one, and then we'll move over to the sewing machine, and we will top stitch at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. But instead of starting at the opening, we're going to start right up at the top and go all the way down, and then come all the way up to the top on this side. Stop, go back, and then top stitch this separately. So again, we want to start at the top of the piece, not the top of the opening. I'll show it a little better on the machine. All right, so I'll do this one off camera, and then we'll be back and do the stitching. All right, now it is time to baste around the center opening. So as I mentioned before, we need to start at the top, and it'll be 1/8 of an inch seam allowance from here, but we're going to start all the way at the top and come all the way down, around, and back up all the way to the top. Then we'll stop and come back and go over the bridge piece separately. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So setting it to a five stitch length. I'm going to start up at the top, so let's see where it is. So 1/8 is about there, so all right, here we go. Now we're going to go across, trim my threads. And now we're going to go across the bridge part at 1/8 of an inch as well. All right. Go ahead and do the other one, and we'll move on to the next step. All right, I don't know if you can see this, but it looks like I've got a bit of tension issues. My top thread is too loose. If this happens to you, you don't need to pull it out and redo it, and you especially don't want to do that if you've been working with a vinyl or a leather or something that once you've got a hole in it, it's there. At least with cotton, you can get rid of holes. So I'm going to find where it starts. It starts about here. So one way to get out of having to pull it and redo it is just grab a stiletto or a stitch ripper or some tweezers or something that will allow you to get underneath. So I got underneath the stitch. It's harder when you've got like a woven like that, like I have underneath. So, and then you just pull it up and you do that. keep doing that for all of the stitches, and I would do it all the way up. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to do the same thing all the way up to the top, moving it all the way up to the top. Because once it's up here, this is going to be in the seam allowance. You can trim it off and melt the ends, but maybe best if we didn't have any tension issues, but if you do, this is how you can do it. So I'll do a few more, and then I'm going to do the remainder off camera, because you don't need to watch me do the whole thing. And then I'll start again when I get close to the top. Right, so get under and just pull it up. Alright, so those stitches are much better now. We've pulled out the excess thread. The reason I'm doing it from the top is it looks like it was my top thread that was way too loose. Bottom thread looks pretty tight. I don't have much of an adjustment for the bottom thread on this. It should be the same. Like it's a a Tex 70 thread bonded polyester. So it should be the same as all the others for my bobbin. So I'm not changing my bobbin settings. I can easily change the top settings. So anyways, going to go finish this. There we go, one more. Finish this off camera. All right, so I now have the thread moved all the way along to the top. You can either leave the loop like that if you wanted to. I'm not going to, because I don't want to risk it coming down and be seen. It's in the seam. It should be caught in the seam, but just in case it's not, I'm going to trim it off, take a lighter, and melt down the ends of the thread. So there we go. All of our stitching looks good. Now we're going to move on to the next step. All right, now it's time to add the exterior panel underlay. So this piece here goes under like that. So we have a nice looking center part here. So on this piece, I've already added some double-sided tape, not taking it off yet. We'll take that off in a minute. I've also marked the center across the bridge, and I've marked the center of this piece. So I'm going to flip my panel. It's a little difficult on this table. Flip my panel wrong side up, add my underlay right side down, matching the snip marks, and then I'm going to clip. And then I'm going to clip. This should match the curve all the way out. So clip all the way out to the edge. Oops. So now we've got that on. Okay, so this is where we want it to be. I'm just going to slide it under my presser foot. Okay, there we go. So I want it to lie flat. So I've added the tape, and the tape actually should be outside of the seam, because I don't want to sew through it. So I'm just going to go now and take off the tape, press the tape down, and then the one across the bottom. This is just going to hold it in place while I stitch. So now I've got it in place. I'm going to flip my whole piece over. And so I'm going to start where I started before, at the top of the piece. Only this time I'm going to do 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So it's about there. So, and this is still a top stitch, so I'm at a number 5 stitch length. So, and then back stitch. I'm trying to keep it flat. And we're doing 1/4 of an inch away from the edge, all the way around. So I forgot to mention before I take this off, before I added the panel, that you need to mark, take a ruler and mark up from this line. The ruler should follow the edge of the opening, and then you take a marking tool and mark a line all the way up. And you need to do it on all sides. So both sides of each opening on each panel. So now next step is to take some scissors, and we are going to cut off this bridge. It was here to just help keep things stable. So now we're going to take some scissors and cut along that line all the way up. So we're cutting off the bridge piece basically. Okay, there we go, there's our panel. Do the same for the other piece. All right, so again, we want to remove this bridge piece. So I already have my lines marked here, and I think I forgot in the other when I was showing how to cut it off, you need to go between, we're just cutting off this piece, don't cut your back panel. So find right on the line and cut that off. Again, not cutting the back piece. There we go. All right. All right, now it's time to add the Kangaroo Pocket flap over top on the exterior panels. So I've marked the centers of this. I'm just going to flip it over for a second, and I have this. It's less than 1/8 of an inch this wide. Yeah, I don't have anything. Yeah. So I'm going to take about a little over about 1.5 inches of it, and I am going to put it at the bottom on the seam, on the stitching line that I had before. So what we want to do, we're going to take it, we're going to match up the center snips and clip it into place, starting at the center and working out. And just to try and keep that away from the edge, and just to try and keep it straight while I'm stitching, because especially since my table is kind of on the small side, I'm going to take this and stick this down. And hopefully that holds it well enough while I'm sewing so that it doesn't move on me. All right, so what we need to do now is start stitching, because we have this in place. We have this false line of stitching in place so we can get our hand in. And then we need to start at the top and then come down here and end where this faux stitching stops. Then we come here and stitch all the way around the curve and ending where our faux stitch line starts. Go to the other side, stitch from there to the top. So I'm going to start actually on this side, and we're doing it an eighth of an inch away from the edge. We're top stitching, and I have it on a 5 stitch length. And I will do this for both panels. So I'm getting close to the stitch, so I'm going to do one more. That looks good. Make sure you try and get as close to the hole as you can, and then I'm going to lift it up, cut it off, move down and try and get my needle right in this last hole. All right, and then up. You can jump over and have a jump stitch if you want. You're gonna have to cut it later anyway, so trim it off at some point. I just chose to do it then. And now try and get it in that hole and go up to the top. Trimming all your threads. All right, one panel done. I am going to go, and you can place rivets. Actually, it's probably a good idea to place rivets. So right where the faux stitching starts and then stops, we're going to place rivets there. So I'm going to figure out where I'm putting them. So I'm just going to mark it. I'm going to do it on both sides. I have a rivet press. Hopefully you can see that. And I'm just going to, I can take these off now. I'm just going to put it under and punch the holes with this. Yep, it is going through. All right. Now, this one I have set up for putting the rivets in. I keep my rivets stored in one of these. Got it from Michael's. It's for jewelry making. All right, we're gonna add the rivets. So I've got some. I usually like to use Decaville Heavy, but I couldn't find any scrap, so I'm going to use some Peltex. So I'm going to push the post through the front of the hole. I'm going to put this on the back side. So I've also switched out, I was using small rivets before, these are medium rivets now. So, and then pop that on, and then I can press the rivet down. There we go. So I'm going to continue and do that for all four. Then I'll work on the other side, and then we'll move on to the next section. All right, all the rivets are in. Make sure they're not loose. And there's our first panel. Okay, so I'm going to backtrack a bit after I put the rivets on the other pocket. I realized that I had miscalculated on the marks. I measured the amount, the distance for the second hole. I measured it from the top. It should be measured from this first mark that you made down. Not from the top down, not from the top down, but from this mark down. So I've marked the holes again, or marked where it should go again, and then I'm going to just go in, put my needle down in this hole, stitch to there and back, and there and back. So I'm making the faux stitching here larger so you can actually get our hand in. So you can't really get your hand in the other pocket. A kid probably could, but my hand barely fits in. So I'm fixing it for this side, and this is how I'm fixing it. So, and then go down to the other mark. So yeah, just be careful when you're doing your marks that you do it from the second number. So this is the first number. The second number on it, you go down from here, that amount. Don't do like I did. All right, putting the needle down on there. All right, now I am going to add it to the exterior panel, just like I did the other one. And I'm going to do that off camera. I'll put the rivets in off camera, then we can set these aside and move on to the next step. All right, so I've got this panel done. The pockets are the right size now, my hand fits in properly. So I've made this my front, and because I forgot to put my label on the pocket piece before I sewed it together, I've added my label down at the bottom. So the one thing I forgot to mention was that now that we have we don't need any more of this extra facing, and we don't want it in our seams. So now I'm just going to take my scissors and I am going to cut back a bunch of extra. Make sure that it stays way out of the seams, and yeah, make sure it stays out of the seams. So we don't need this anymore. Alright, so that's one done. I'll go ahead and do the other one. So here's the other one, so you can see the pockets are a bit different. This one, yeah, I can't get my hand in it. A kid might be able to get their hand in it, and actually if there's little kids' toys or something in there, that might work. But anyways, so now I'm going to take the excess off of this one as well. Doesn't have to be neat because it's not going to be seen. And there we go. Our exterior panels are both done. Now it's time to move on to the next step. All right, so it's time to move on to the exterior gusset. I have a couple steps to do before I get to apply it. I decided I wanted the a join in the bottom with the extra top stitching on it. So I'm going to take my two pieces. So I cut it I added 1/2 inch to the length, the overall length, and then I cut it in two. So I have about 1/4 inch to work with. So I'm just going to, it's slippery faux leather, so I'm going to just put a couple clips in it. I'm going to stitch it at 1/4 inch. So I've got it on 3.5 stitch length. Trim my threads. Now I'm going to up it to 5 stitch length. I'm going to butterfly my seams, and then I'm going to stitch 1/8 inch down either side of those. So this is me just doing it because I wanted this extra, but I thought I would include this in the video so that if you want to do the same thing, this is what you do. Make sure it's still, seam's still open. All right, that's our exterior gusset. Putting it aside for just a minute. Okay, so on these pieces, on our exterior panels, we needed to, according to the measurement given in the instructions, we need to measure down from this top edge and put a line. I've used Choco pen, or like a Choco mark pen, whatever, so that I can see it and it will wipe off. Because it needs to come down from this, but we need it over here. Anyways, so this is where we're going to start and stop our gusset. Okay, so we needed to mark those on all 4 sides. Now the other thing we need to do with the gusset is I need to mark it down on either end, either short end. So I'm going to mark this. And then I'm going to grab some double-sided tape, and I'm going to put it along the top edge. Of that. peel off the double-sided tape and fold it down to meet that line. Hopefully this will hold. All right, so there we have a nice finished edge. Hopefully that stays. I'm going to put a couple clips just to be certain, and then go and do the other end. Same thing. So I'm using double-sided, it's called leather tape. I buy mine from either Wawak or Cleaner Supply. I believe they're the same company, just one is for cleaners, like dry cleaners, and the other one's for sewing. All right, so I've got those done, and now I'm going to move around to the table view for this part. All right, now we are going to attach the exterior gusset to the exterior part of the bag. So since I've got the center seam there, I already have my center marked. My center is marked on my exterior piece. So with right sides together, I am going to match up the center with the center snip. And if I haven't said this before, I'm going to say it now. I didn't interface my exterior piece. I thought since it's upholstery canvas, it should be fine. Upholstery fabric, it should be fine. But I'm finding it a little flimsy, so I'm not sure how this is going to all work. So depending on how it works, I will let you know at the end if I think I should have put some interfacing, like done some fusible interfacing on it. Anyways, so clipping, I clipped the center and now I'm clipping out. So I've got 3 clips in there now. And now I'm going to go up and line up that mark that I have on my exterior panel with the top of my gusset. And I'm going to clip it in place. And then start clipping all the way down to meet. If I need to, I can put little snips in my gusset to ease it in if I need to. So I'm just doing little, about 1/8 of an inch snips, about almost 1/2 inch apart each. I can always add more. All right, and now I can spread this out to ease it around the curve. And in this case, clips are your friend. Especially when my gusset is faux leather, so it's a lot thicker, and it has the Decaville on it. All right, now I'm going to go and bring this side up to this mark and do the same thing on this side. All right, I have this all clipped. So now I'm going to move you around to the camera view, and we will stitch this with the gusset side up. We will stitch this on to the exterior panel. All right, we're going to stitch this exterior gusset on. I've got it gusset side up, and we're going to start about 1/8 of an inch down from the top edge, and we're doing a 3/8 inch seam allowance. So I've got it on a 3.5 stitch length. Make sure to back stitch at the start and the end of your seam. So I'm going to back stitch, go all the way around, and do the same finish at the top, leaving 1/8 of an inch at either side. right, there we go. I am going to go around this again right close to this other line of stitching just to reinforce it. Alright, now I'm going to take my pinking shears and I am going to trim off some of this excess. So I'm going to start about an inch, inch and a half down and then just trim the rest away. This should help ease it around the corners a little bit better. Trying not to snip my second row of stitching. Alright, and there we go. There's the front done. I'm going to go and clip the gusset onto the exterior back piece off camera, but I will come back and stitch it on after I've clipped it on. Alright, I've got the other side clipped on. Again, I'm going to sew with the gusset side up, and I'm going to start about 1/8 of an inch down from the edge and stitch at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Alright, both sides are attached, and now we can move on to the next section. Alright, we're moving on to the lining of the bag, and more specifically the zipper pocket. So with this zipper pocket we have a facing. I'm just going to mark a line there because I have it measured. So in the back of the facing, I don't know if you can see this, I have my lines drawn according to the specifications in the pattern, and I also have my center marked. Have my center marked on the top of my lining pattern piece, and then you have to measure down so much from the top and then center this zipper facing along that line. So now what we're going to do is stitch along the box that we've created on the zipper facing. We're just actually going to stitch one side, skip over, and stitch the other side. This helps a little bit with puckering, so you don't get a lot of puckering in the corner. So needle down in the corner. I have it on a 3.5 stitch length, and remember to back stitch at the beginning and the end of your seam. Trimming all of your threads, including the jump stitch at the far end. Right, now I'm just going to fold this somewhat in half, take my scissors and cut in the center, because we're going to cut this opening so we can push the zipper facing through. Alright, so I'm going to use my better scissors so I can get closer into the corner. Alright, so cut down the length until you're no less than a 1/2 inch away, and then we're going to snip into the corner. So we're making making like a little V on the corner, but you don't want to snip your stitches. If you feel better drawing this line and your V ahead of time, you can. I've just done this enough, I can estimate it. So there we go. All right, so now we want to push this through the hole. So I'm finger pressing it right now. I will probably turn around and use my iron in a minute. This facing and push it through the hole. Bring it around to the other side. And fold it over nice so that the edges are even. I'm going to grab some clips, and for now I'm just going to clip to help hold it before I steam it. And with waterproof canvas, you have to be careful you don't get the wrong side. You can only iron from the right side of waterproof canvas, at least this waterproof canvas. Alright, I am going to turn around now and use the iron, blast it with some steam, and then we'll move on. All right, so there we go. I'm going to use some, because it wants to pop up. The waterproof canvas is a lot stronger than the quilting cotton. So I'm going to use a little bit of double-sided tape. I have this very thin double-sided tape. So I'm just going to use a couple bits. Actually, I'll use the 1/8 of an inch. So this one is the 1/8 inch. Find the start. And I'm just going to put a couple little strips along the edges just to hold it while I install the zipper. All right, there we go. We have the facing on. Now we're going to move on to the zipper part. Putting the zipper pieces together. So I have my zipper tabs. Those aren't for this, that's for something else, so I'm going to put that aside. And so we have two pieces for the inside pocket. The top and then the main part. So I've got my zipper tape here. Okay, so we want the top zipper pocket A piece right sides down, and your zipper right side down along the bottom of the zipper pocket A piece. And I'm going to just grab a couple clips to clip it. You can use double-sided tape if that works for you. I'll use clips. I don't mind using them. Okay, now we are going to sew this down with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So move this out of the way a bit. And I am on a 3.5 stitch length. So this may look odd because the zipper teeth end up being on the wrong side, but it's actually correct because this is the inside of the pocket. So now we want to take this and push. We want this this edge of the zipper to, we want the zipper to stay straight. We need to top stitch it down so it stays that way. So fold the zipper down, keep the zipper straight. We want the seam allowance going towards the piece A, and we're going to top stitch it with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance right along that edge. So 5 stitch length. And the pattern has in it that you do this with your pull, and it says which direction your pull needs to be in. I guess if you're using store-bought tape, or like store-bought zipper, you need to follow that. I'm using zipper tape, and I prefer to keep the slider off until I'm done this part. I will add it on after I have the bottom part added. All right, now we're going to do the same thing for the bottom piece. So I'm not sure mine is actually directional. I want it to be inside the pocket like this. Place the top edge of zipper pocket B on the bottom edge of the zipper right side down. No, both. So along here. So when I flip it up, yeah, all right. So yeah, so if you have a directional print, I have my directional print. I'm going to say it's this way so that the numbers in the center, actually that'll be upside down. I guess it doesn't really matter. Anyways, if you have a directional print, I would put along the top, and you would put the zipper face down across the top. So right sides again, both of them down. And I'm going to clip along and stitch along just like I did the other, and then top stitch. So while I'm doing this, I am using my hand and pushing the zipper tape out towards the bottom piece. And I'm feeling with this hand to make sure that it stays that way. All right, there we go. As you may have noticed, I'm still having issues with my tension. It seems to be only on the top stitching. So I'm going to put on my zipper pull now, and then off camera I will fix that because it's bugging me. All right, so adding a zipper pull. So if you look at, where's my pointer? So you can see on this side I've got this coil first and coil tooth first, and that side, then this, that, back and forth. So we want them to end up in the same way after, because we know that keeps the zipper all nice and straight. And we want a straight zipper. So I'm going to put the zipper head on that side, and then put this in and bring it up as close as I can to matching. So it may mean straightening out the zipper slider. And then pop it on, and there we go. I got it on in the right order. And you can tell that it's right because you don't have one side bulging more than the other. So right now I'm going to move that into the center. I'm going to hop off camera, fix those stitches, and then we'll move on to the next section. All right, I got most of the stitches straightened out. It is on the back of the inside of the pocket, so it's, if somebody looks they could probably see it, but I'm not too concerned about it. So now we're going to add our this zipper pocket to the main panel. So I'm just going to slip this under. Now I have put tape along the top and the bottom here out of my seam allowance. I want to try and line up, center the zipper as much as possible on that, and then I'm going to take the tape off. So I'm going to take the tape off from this side first because it looks like I've got it pretty well lined up. I guess I can lower the presser foot, and I want to line it up so it's nicely centered. The zipper is nicely centered in the pocket. All right, so I've got that one. I'm going to just turn it around a bit. So I'm keeping my zipper slider out of the way while I do this. And now I'm going to do the other side. So peel the paper from the tape, line it up on the zipper so that it's pretty even. There we go. And now I'm going to start sewing around the zipper box. So I'm going to actually put it down and start stitching here and come down and around. Then I'll move my zipper slider to this side and continue on around. It helps keep the zipper, well, the zipper slider's not getting in the way, the teeth aren't spread, so it keeps it a little more even. So I've also changed my thread color. Hopefully it goes pretty well with this waterproof canvas. So put it down here, just down, and I'm 5 stitch length and it's 1/8 of an inch, and I will go like I said, around here, move the zipper out of the way, and then continuing the rest of the way around. I'm going to backstitch a bit, and this can be seen, but if you want, you can leave your tails long and pull it to the back and tie it off, but I don't feel like doing that, so. And there we go. Zipper in that far, melt the stitches, and looking at this, I don't like the waviness, but I think that's the fabric behind it. But I don't have any tension issues with this thread. So the other one was a bonded poly. This is a bonded nylon. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I know I have had issues with bonded poly before, but I can't say for sure that's what it was. So anyways, this part is in. Now I'm going to flip this over, flip this part up. I'm going to clip it across the top. Actually, I need to move some of this. Just pull it away from the tape here for a few minutes. It doesn't matter after if it's stuck to it or not. Just while I'm stitching this, I'm going to stitch it across the top first. So, where are my clips? Here, put a couple clips in to hold it. I'm going to go across the top first. You can go up one side across the top and down the other, but I don't want to fight with the tape partway through. So this should match all the way across. Yeah, it does. All right, and so I'm going to stitch this at a 3/8 inch with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Actually, it is better that you do it this way. I just remembered. We need to open the pocket on the bottom. We need to open the bottom of the pocket. So stitch it across the top. Kind of finger press it flat. Grab scissors. And then we're going to just cut across the bottom. Doesn't leave a nice smooth edge, but whatever. So now we're going to stitch down the side. So I'm going to go down one side and then up the other. And I'm going to try and do 3/8 of an inch on here as well. And you want to make sure that your zipper is being caught in. I guess you can, yeah, I can put the facing down so it gets caught. And then as we get closer to the bottom, I'm going to fold this up. It just helps with folding the seam out later and finishing the bag and finishing the pocket. Trim my threads. And then the other side, I'm going to fold the other side up about the same amount. We're going to start on this end, 3/8 of an inch again, approximately. Go, trim the threads, and now we want to open the bottom, pull it in the side, not too much because you don't want to rip it, but and pop it over like this. It just helps. And then you also can take it to the iron if you need to. Finger press it open. I'm going to take it to the iron briefly, and then we can set this aside and move on to the next section. It's time to move on to the recessed zipper panel. I'm changing the pattern up a bit I'm changing my bag up from what it says in the pattern. In the pattern, it has 2 zipper pulls, and you're to center the zipper in the recessed zipper panel. I prefer to have the zipper only go one way. I don't want 2, I just want 1, so that it sits nice and then hangs down on the other side. So I've gone ahead and marked a spot on my, let's see if I can get this a little darker, on my zipper tape, and it's like I normally do, 5/8 of an inch down from the top. And I'm going to make it a 90-degree angle. So I'm going to pull these apart. I'm going to pinch on this line. Pinching on that line pushes the teeth out to the outside of the zipper, making a 90-degree angle. Then I'm going to grab a pin, and I am going to put a pin in it. So do the same on the other side. So pinching on that line, right on that line, forces the teeth to the outside of the zipper tape, and then I put a pin in it. Now I'm going to put this under the needle. I want to make sure I catch the back, and we're basically tacking this in place. So I'm going to get it. I'm going to use a 3.5 stitch length, and I'm going to use my tweezers to help me. So, and you want to get as close to the edge as possible, because you don't want these stitches to be seen on the outside of the bag. So I put it down, put my needle down, and I hand crank a couple. Now I lift my presser foot, take the pin out, use my tweezers to help, push it under and back. Trim my threads. And the same for the other side. All right. Needle down. Hand crank a couple. Trying not to hit my pin. Pull my pin out. That was really close. Use my tweezers to help. All right. There we go. We've got our 90-degree angle on the zipper. I am not going to put the slider on until the end. Clean up some of these threads. So now we want to, I'm going to do this part the same though. So I've got, this is the faux leather. I've got marks in from either end, just as it says in the instructions. This is my lining piece of quilting cotton with a woven interfacing. So I'm going to take, I want to put the zipper in between those marks. So I really should have marked it on the other side so I can see. Maybe there. So I want to place, I'm just going to pick one of them, and I want it to place it face down. Yes, face down at the mark. So actually I just want it in from the mark a little bit, because this is where we're going to fold the pieces back out of the way to create a nice finish. So I'm going to put it there. I'm going to clip it into place. And clip it all the way along. You want to make sure when you're marking on your fabric that you can wipe it off properly. So I'm going to be stopping at this line. So I'm going to start just inside this line and stop at the end of the zipper. If my zipper went past, you would stop at the mark that you've created. You don't want it. You don't want to stitch further than those marks. So I'm going to baste mine down first. So get it under the needle. Okay. Now that that's basted on, I'm going to add the cotton piece. Now I've noticed that my quilting cotton piece has shrunk just a little bit, so I'm going to try and center it the best I can. And then I'm going to clip this in place along the edge and make a zipper sandwich. So now we've got the exterior face up, the zipper face down, and the lining face down on top. Starting at that line, I'm going to stitch in as close as I can to the zipper. For me, it's about a scant quarter inch. I can't quite get over there with my current foot. We don't want to go past that mark. There we go. Pull it out. Now we have these pieces we need to do something with. So if I fold it back at the line, actually I'm going to put a little bit of double-sided tape on it. I'm using my 1/8 of an inch one, so try and keep it out of my stitch area. Most of it out of my stitch area anyways. I'm going to do the same on the other side. And we want to make sure that the lining and the exterior edges meet, because we want a nice clean edge when we fold it back on itself like this. We want these two edges to be nice. So I've done one side and I'm going to clip it. Now I'm going to do the same for the other side, and then yeah, I'm going to do the same for the other side. I'm going to fold back the cotton side first because it's a little bit shorter. So there, and now I'm going to fold back the faux leather side. And want to make it as even as possible. There we go. And I'm going to fold it back like this. I'm going to put a clip in it, and then I'm going to pull the zipper away from both, trying to keep the lining and the exterior fabrics even on this side. So match these up, clip in it, pull out the zipper a bit. Okay. So this is one. I'm going to, yeah, I'll stitch around it now. So I'm going to start down here and come up, and then top stitch, and then baste along the bottom. Starting here, then you can hide it in the seams. You don't have your start and stop point like up in a corner here. Just makes it a little neater in the finished product. So. And so I'm on a 5-stitch length, and it's an 1/8 of an inch top stitch. So I'm having a little problem going up the hill, so I have this piece of fabric that came, or it's actually leather that came with my machine, so I'm going to stick it under the foot. It works like a hump jumper and lets you get up on top. And I need to use it again. I'm going to get my clips, these two out of the way. Put this behind my foot. Take a stitch, move it up a bit so it's touching the back of the needle, because we're going forward, so we're not going to stitch over it. Let's see, is that good? No, a little bit more. Alright, now we can just clip the threads, melt down any ends so that they don't stick out by accident. And we have one side done. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side, and then we'll move on to the next section. So this one, we put it face down. We need to have it going the other way, this one going the other way. So we have to put it face down. We want the edge along the bottom, and we want to make sure that when it opens up, it's going to be the opposite, because both of them need to close at the same end. So I'm going to stick it down with it to the right this time, because I started the other one, pretty sure I started the other one to the left. So I'm gonna put it down just from the line just a bit like I did the other one. And basically do the same as I did to the other side. So the reason I'm doing this is I want to make sure that I have the zipper ending at the right spot. So I'm actually taking this piece and folding the cotton piece back to about the same distance away from the end of the zipper teeth as the other one. So it's not quite meeting. Like it's not, I'm not folding at the line on this one, I'm folding to where I need it to be so that it looks right. So now I'm going to fold the rest. I'm going to do the same with the rest, although this end isn't quite as important as this, because if you thought this end is off, you will really notice it. So there we go. Not quite. Need it to be there. So I had to snip a stitch so that I could get this one folded down at the right spot. Pretty close. All right, I can, oops, no, that one stays. These ones go. Got that one down. I'm lining them up, lining the two pieces up, and I'm going to add a zipper pull. Actually, try going this way. Okay, so I've lined them up. Try and keep this end as close together as possible. So I took note of where it was before I popped the zipper slider on. Yeah, so this one was quite a bit, then that one, then that one. It looks like I've got it. Yeah, it's okay. Maybe this one down a little. The zipper teeth look a lot better on that one. There we go. I will put a zipper end on this, probably close to the end of the bag. I don't have any in matte black, so I'm going to have to use a gunmetal one, but I don't think it'll matter too much. It hangs inside the bag anyways. So there we go, recess zipper all done. Set this aside for a minute or two, and we'll move on to the next side. All right, in this next section, we will be creating the strap connectors and adding them to the top of the lining piece. So I've got my 4 strap connectors here. I've already added my Decaville light in the center here. That just gives it a little extra structure. So I'm going to fold these over. So I'm going to put, actually I'm going to put some double-sided tape down the center. So I'm using, this is 1/2 inch double-sided tape, and I'll put it in the center. I'll do it for the other ones after. I'll do one now, and then the rest will be sped up. So in the center, peel the tape, and we don't have to mark the center now because we're just going to fold it over right up to the edge of that Decaville light. So it gives us a really nice clean edge, and it gives us some extra stability support in our straps. So we want to match right up to the center. Oops, I got this one over a little bit too far. And there we go. So I'm going to now top stitch on both sides, and I'm going to do it at 1/8 of an inch and then 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to put the double-sided tape on all of these, then I will stitch them all at the same time. Now that we have our strap connectors done, we're going to add D-rings, and we're also going to be adding them to the lining top pieces. All right, we need to make some markings on our strap connectors and on our lining top pieces. I've done the lining top pieces, so according to the pattern, I marked in the correct amount on either side. So these are where our strap connectors are going to be placed. The other thing, so I've done both of those. The other thing, I've done 3 of these. We mark in according to the pattern and place a mark from the short ends. We make these marks from the short ends. And this is on the back side, not the right side, the good side, the right side, it's on the wrong side. So I'm folding it in half, kind of creasing it a bit, and then I'm putting a light mark in the center like that. So now we want to match the 1/2 inch marking. So I'm going to take one of my pieces and I'm going to match the 1/2 inch mark. I guess I'm telling you that I'm going to match this mark at the bottom so it matches the bottom, and that the outside of the strap connector matches the line that we marked on that side. So I'm going to just clip it in place. I'm going to take another one and do it on the other side. So this line matches along the bottom, and the outside edge of the strap connector matches where the line we drew on the lining top piece. So I'm going to clip those two, move these out of the way for a minute, and then I am going to stitch just above this line, about 1/8 of an inch above this line, across the bottom of the connector tabs, or connectors. Okay, make sure it doesn't move, and then 1/8 of an inch away on the strap connector itself, and make sure to back stitch. And do the same with the other piece. All right, now we want to add some hardware. Actually, I'm going to rivet first. It suggests putting a rivet in just below, so I'm going to mark a dot where I want a rivet. So I want to put a rivet in just below this line for added security. So I'm going to punch those holes and add rivets now, and then I'll do the same for both, and then we'll add the hardware. All right, so I punched holes and I added rivets. I know these are not the matte black rivets. These are just rivets I had that were kind of scuffed up that I wouldn't put on the outside of a bag, but they'll work fine on the inside. You could also use, if you have single, these are double cap rivets, but if you have single cap rivets, this would be a good use for them as well. So I'm going to add the hardware now. So put my D-ring on and fold this down so that it goes past. I think I marked my rivet a little high, so I don't quite meet the ends there. It's not going to make a huge difference. There is enough it's going to get caught in the end. It just, I got a little too high. So one thing to watch out for, you don't go too high with your rivet, or because if you can't even get your bottom of your tab in the seam allowance, then you're going to have a problem, because you need to be able to stitch that in to the seam. So I'm got this, so now I'm going to stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the bottom to hold that in place. I'm going to do both sides, and then I will do the other piece, and then we'll move on to the next step. I like to start on my connectors and stitch a couple stitches, and then back to the edge, and then all the way across. It helps keep your connectors in line, because you want them nice and even. You don't want it over to one side or the other. So if you have them nicely lined up and you start just in, say maybe even the second row of stitching, come forward, go back, and then go forward again, then that'll help keep them even, and because you're not trying to climb this hill. Right, so there's one. So we want to make sure that we put the flat side against the flat side of the, we want to encase the flat side of the D-ring in the connector. Right, there we go. Time to move on to the next step. Moving on, we're going to be adding the recessed zipper, and we're also going to be adding the lining top piece all together. So I have marked the centers on all my pieces except this one. So I'll mark the centers on this one. And then I chose to do this one first. I want to make sure my zipper closes the same way on both. So we want to put the zipper, recessed zipper panel face up on top of the lining, and we want it centered, but we want to make sure the zipper is going to close this way. This zipper closes this way, that zipper will close that way. So that is why I chose this part, this part of the recessed zipper panel, because if I chose this one and put it on, then the zipper would close the wrong way. So I'm going to match up the centers, grab some clips and clip it into place. And now I am going to baste it on with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, and now I'm going to add, stick it under here. I have added clips to keep this open. Take them off. Stick this under to hold it for a minute. Close that up. And now we want to place this piece. So this is the top of the lining. We want to match the notches. Place it face down on top of the lining and the recessed zipper piece. So I've got lining bottom side up, recessed zipper right side up, top panel right side down. So we're matching up the center snips, and then I go out and clip it across out each way. I'm going to leave it there. So we're going to need to get over these connectors. So I'll be using my piece of fabric again. So now we're going to stitch this on with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. I'm moving it to 3.5 stitch length. And we'll start from the edge and make sure to back stitch. Use your fabric or hump jump or whatever you have to help you over the humps. And I'm just going to back stitch a bit to reinforce again the straps, because they're going to be carrying the weight of the bag on them. So want to make sure that they're in there for good. Zip it and see. And okay. Now we're going to fold this, and we want these going down. So we want this all, my recessed zipper is going up, so we want this all going down. So now we're going to top stitch along here, and I'm just going to, actually I'm going to go ahead and add this, the other piece onto the other piece, and then I'll move on to the top stitch because I want to use my coordinating thread. And there we go. So this panel doesn't have anything on it. You could, if you wanted to, try and figure out a slip pocket if you wanted. I'm just trying to follow the pattern as close as I can. So as I mentioned, I'm going to switch my thread, and then I'm going to come back and top stitch. All right, we're going to top stitch these. I've swapped out my thread. right eighth of an inch right along that edge, and I have it on a 5-stitch length. And grab my, where'd my fabric go? There it is. Grab that in case I need it. Yep, I'm gonna need it. Keep your zipper tail out of the way. If I didn't mention it before, this seam allowance needs to go towards the lining bottom part. And do the same for the other one. Okay, you can set aside your lining panels for now. We're going to move on to the next step. Right now it's time to build our divider pocket. So we need to grab our zipper. This is the zipper for the divider pocket. You need to have your zipper slider on if it's not already there, and we're going to need our zipper tabs. So I've just cut mine out of my upholstery fabric. So we need to place it down. So we need to mark a line down the center of each tab, because we're going to fold one side to that. So they are, so I need that. Make sure you mark on the wrong side of the tab. Right. And now we're going to put them on either end. Make sure that your marked line goes crossways across the zipper. I'm going to flip it because it's not quite square. Right, so I'm going to clip them to either end. And now I'm going to stitch across with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And 3.5, and I'm going to grab my tweezers to help me up over the zipper teeth. And do this for the other, same for the other side, 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, now we're going to fold this non-sewn edge, so the edge opposite the edge we sewed, down to that marked line, and then we're going to fold it to the back of the zipper tab. And hopefully it's a little bit, this one's a little bit longer, so that should work. I'm going to put a clip in it and do the other side, and then we will stitch right along the edge at with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So again, folding this fabric to the line, pulling the fabric out straight, keeping the zipper going towards the fold line, and then folding it again on itself. And do I have to, no, I'm okay. No, I'm going to cut this one down a bit. This one has a little pointy bit on the zipper that's kind of getting in the way. So I'm just going to take that off and make sure I melt the end of my zipper, because I do not want it fraying. Even with the zipper tab on, I still don't want it to possibly fray and come apart. So, right, so again, folding this to the line and then folding it to the back like that. Now I'll put a clip in it. Right, so now I'm going to stitch it across right at the edge of the tab with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Use my tweezers to help get me under my needle. And all right, now I'm going to take my scissors And I'm just going to trim off the ends flush with the zipper tape. That's pretty good. And then there. All right, so that's the zipper. And now I'm going to find the center of the zipper. I'm going to use my thread zap to mark the side of my zipper. I don't really like putting snips in, although somebody the other day showed, so I use this because it melts the threads around it, but somebody also showed you put the tiny snip in it, and then you take your lighter and you can melt the threads around it, which is pretty much like what this is doing. I guess I could have made a bigger snip. So there's where I need to make the snip. So I make a bigger snip, and then I use my lighter to melt the threads around it so it won't fray. So anyways, I've marked the middle of my zip. I'm gonna move that over a bit. I need to grab one outer, so there's my outer piece. I'm going to find the center of this one. Actually, I'm going to find it all like on the top and the bottom, just in case I need the bottom. I probably will because we need to add a gusset. So top and the bottom. And then I need a lining piece. So here's my lining piece. So I'm going to find the center of this. Alright, so taking this piece, it doesn't feel like it's fused properly, but anyways, I've marked the top and the bottom of both pieces. So now I want to take the prep zipper, stick it under here. I want it to open this side, because this, if I put it down, face down on this is the exterior, open up and it will close in this direction, which is the way all of our other bags close. So turning it around, this is the right side of the bag. We put it on there, it will open up to the left side of the bag. The correct, well, the matching way. Keep it the same. All right, so I'm going to clip this along this edge, starting in the center mark. I'm going to open the zipper now that it's on. And now I'm going to base this on the 1/8 of an inch in size 5. Alright, now we want to take the lining piece, so exterior face up, zipper face down, lining piece face down on top of the zipper, making a zipper sandwich. And I'm going to clip this across, actually open my zipper again. Alright, and I'm going to sew this with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Mine's not quite a 1/4 inch because that's a scant 1/4 inch is the best my machine, or this foot on this machine will get. Alright, so I'm going to finger press this for now away. So we're going to end up top stitching through both layers. So, and yes, the lining fabric is shorter, smaller than the exterior. That is as designed. Okay, so with that out of the way, going to do the same thing. Actually, I'm going to press it quickly. All right, I've pressed it nice and flat. Now we're going to do the same with the other side. So find the centers. Going to go press this side away from the zipper, and then we'll top stitch. All right, we're ready to top stitch. So I'm setting it at a 5 stitch length, and we're going to top stitch both pieces down, so like the lining and the exterior together. All right, so now we're going to, now that we've done that, we're going to match the edges up, the top edges of this and the side edges of the pocket. I'm going to put a clip up here. We want the pocket to sit up, the zipper of the pocket to sit up. So yeah, making sure we match the tops and all of the raw edges around the outside. All right, and now I'm going to baste it all the way around at 1/8 of an inch, number 5 stitch length. Okay, trim off these threads, take that off. And now I'm going to mark in 3/4 of an inch from either side, and we are going to stitch around at 3/4 of an inch. So starting from here, and this will help close up the lining, because the lining was a little bit, I need to trim that off. The lining was a little bit, was smaller, so we need to make sure that we close it up. I'm gonna see if this will work, because I don't have 3/4 marked on my machine bed or anything, so I'm going to put it under my machine at that spot, and then I'm gonna, ooh, it does stick. Okay, and then I'm going to put my magnetic seam guide, I don't know if I have it, they're pointing the right direction, but it works, whatever. So, and now I'm going to stitch it at 3/4 of an inch all the way around. And then I'm going to unzip and check inside, make sure everything was caught. And yes, all caught. So there we go. This is the inside pocket. All right, time to move on to the next step. All All right, it's time now to add the gusset to the lining panels. I've already gone ahead and done one. I had to improvise a bit. I don't know what I did. Maybe it's a seam allowance, somewhere in here is off, but I had to trim off about 1/4 of an inch all the way around the blue part. So I took it 1/4 of an inch off all the way around so that the lines up at the top will meet. So first thing on the gusset, you need to mark 2 lines, and the measurements are in the pattern. So you mark the first one, then you mark the second one. I've applied a piece of tape so that we can eventually fold this over. So you're to line up, there's lines on here too. So just like we did on the outside, measure from the top down and mark a line, and do that for all sides, both pieces. And then we want to match the first line up with this line we marked on the lining top piece. So match those up and match up the centers. Mine's easy to tell because I did the double seam. It was an oops, I shouldn't have cut it like that. I checked it and it's the right measure. It came out the right measurement, so I'm really not sure what I did. So on this part, we needed to leave the opening that we were going to turn through. And so I've marked those. It's about an 8-inch opening. So you do all the lines on both sides of the gusset for both gusset pieces and lining panel pieces. So I'm going to set this one aside because it's already done. And I'm going to work on it. So I've done this one side of this just to make sure that it works on this one as well. I've actually cut snips in the edge of the gusset to try and make sure that it can ease its way around the curve. So we want to take, so just like the outside, we'll clip in the center, put a couple clips on either side. So I'll grab another clip and put it on this side. And then I'm going to take the other end. And this very first line, I want to match up with the line on the lining top panel. And then I'm going to clip it. That is where we are going to start and stop our stitch lines. So I'm going to go around and clip this, easing the curve with the snip marks I made. I went in about, some of them are about 1/4 of an inch. We have a 3/8 inch seam allowance. So as long as you don't go past that, because otherwise you'll have a hole. And I think I mentioned it before, I had to take almost 1/4 of an inch off for it to work. So I must have been off in a seam allowance somewhere. Anyway, so if that happens, we usually like to have the lining a little bit smaller than the exterior so it fits in nice and isn't all loose and floppy inside. We want a good snug fit. So now I'm going to put it under my needle, starting at this first line. And we're doing a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Just be careful of your D-rings if you have them. So I'm going to flip it down because it's kind of in the way. And I'm on a 3.5 stitch length. Make sure your pocket is out of the way as well. All right, now I'm going to check inside just to make sure I don't have any unwanted puckers. Nope, it looks good to me. So I'm going to take this piece with the pocket, and it's time to add the zipper divider pocket. So I'm going to add this to it. So I've got the center snip there. So I'm going to, actually I think I'm going to move around, briefly to the table view so that I can show this. It's really hard on this table to do things properly. All right, so now we're going to add the interior zip pocket to the lining panels. So I picked this one to start with because I already have the zipper, and this will show me what direction I want the zipper closing in. And again, I want to keep this divider pocket closing the same way as the rest of the zippers. So I'm going to start by lining up the center notch at the bottom with the center of the gusset panel, and then I am going to clip it. And I'm going to clip it so that I have the yeah, I'm going to clip it. No, I think I'll do this with the gusset down this time. We'll see how it goes. So anyways, I'm going to clip it around, starting in the center, working out either side, out toward either side. And it won't go all the way up, and that is fine. That is exactly the way it should be. We don't want it all the way up to the top because there needs to be room for the recessed zipper to be, because the recessed zipper is going to be inside. There's lots of room actually, but anyways. So now I'm going out the other side. So I will go and stitch this on with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around, and then I'll come back and we'll put the other lining piece with the hole in the bottom, with the turn hole in it. We'll attach that. All right, so I completely missed hitting record for the first section. So I sewed on the divider pocket onto the piece that you saw me attach it to. And now I've attached the other piece, and we need to sew up these center panels now, or the center gussets. And we're going to start at the top and go all the way around to the top on the other side. So mine's not completely lining up. I'm not sure why, but it's not, and that's okay because we're going to end up folding this end over anyways. So we're going to start with a 3/8 inch seam allowance at the top, and then gradually move into a 5/8, and then at the top of the lining gusset, and then back to a 3/8 inch seam allowance. So I start with 3/8 up to 5/8, and then back down to 3/8. So I have it on a 3.5 stitch length already. I'm going to make sure I back stitch. So we want to increase it a bit. Try and keep everything else out of the way so it doesn't get sewn into the seam. Yep. So I'm just going to go around at about a 1/2 inch to start. If I need to come in another 1/8 of an inch, then I will. But for now, this looks pretty good. All right, now we're going to take some scissors and only trim the middle seam allowances, the divider pocket and lining gusset. Leave the other seam allowances to help the bag keep its shape. Okay, so I'm going to start just below, and I'm going to trim off some of this excess in just the middle where the divider pocket is. All right, all cut down. So now I want to take the lining gusset pieces, and I'm going to fold them apart. I'm actually going to take the paper for the tape off. Oops. Butterfly these seams and then fold them down to the 1 inch mark down there, all the way across. So this is how we're finishing the gusset seams. So we won't be sewing these until we go to top stitch at the very end. So we'll do the same thing again on this side, taking the tape off. All right, and there we go. We've got the lining in the pocket, the divider pocket. So we want to turn the lining right side out. So I'm putting my hand in the hole and I'm just turning the whole thing right side out. And it'll look a little weird because we do have the pocket not in the center, like this divider pocket won't be in the center. It'll be on top of one of the panels. All right. So I'm going to turn around and go back to the table view to put the lining in and clip it together, and then we'll come back and sew it up. All right, so I've got my exterior, and as I mentioned before, I was going to let you know if I felt the need for the upholstery fabric to have interfacing. Yes, it needed something. It's just way too floppy. At least at the bottom, it was scrunching down so that the outer kangaroo pocket was basically sitting right down. So I put Decaville light on one side, just scraps, and I have some woven interfacing scraps on the other side. I'm hoping that will help keep it from collapsing too much. It's a slouchier bag, but I don't want it collapsing. So I don't know if you can see it in here on this side is my front. I want my zipper pocket, I like having the zipper pocket on the back, because usually you carry a bag with the front out. So keeping the zipper pocket inside right close to your body is nice to have. So I'm going to stick the lining inside the bag with the zipper pocket to the back. I'm going to take my clip off my zippers for now, and then I'm going to match up the center seams, and I'm going to do it from the inside. So I'll be sewing it from the inside. So I match the center seam there, I'll match the center seam on the other side. We're not going to worry about the side seams right now. We just want to match up the rounded edges and like the curvy top on both sides. And my pieces are quite a bit off. I'm not sure what happened, but I'm going to try and get them as close as I can. So I want to make sure that this side seams are going to match. I'm not going to stitch them, but I want to make sure that they do match up. So I'm going to just make sure that they match the corners. So I want to make sure the exterior corners and then interior corners are pretty even. We're not going to stitch across them, as I mentioned. So it looks like it's just this side that's off a bit. So maybe I'll be stitching it from the exterior up. So I catch all of this fabric. And this one is the same. I think part of my problem for the exterior is that I used uninterfaced upholstery fabric that wasn't, so it's kind of moved around and shifted shape shifter, and it went a little wonky even though we had the bridge in there. I should have interfaced it, but I didn't. So anyways, all right, so I've got these. I'm going to flip these ones around. I'm going to work it so that I can get as much over to the side as possible. That's about it. All right, so yeah, so I'm going to take it back to the machine and I am going to stitch just the top on both sides. And then, yeah, so top edge 3/8 of an inch. And start and stop about 1/8 of an inch above the folded gusset. All right, moving over to the sewing machine. All right, so I've taken the table off of my cylinder arm machine. I wouldn't normally do this, it's just I don't want to try and flip this bag to be lining side out. And because I have I'm off by so much on this side, I need to have this side up. So the only way I could have done it on the other machine, because I'm not great at spreading it, so I would flip it and sew it from the inside. But I'm not great at doing that, so I've decided for this one that I'm going to take the table off and get at it from this way. So you can do it, you can either smush it down and sew it, or you can turn it inside out and sew it from the inside, or if you have a cylinder arm, you can do it like this. So I'm going to start, like it said, about 1/8 of an inch away from the fold on the gussets. I can get it under the needle. And we're stitching it at 3/8 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to have to guess on this side because I can't see my markings. With the extra fabric in the way, so I'm just going to guess. But once I get so that they're even, I should be able to follow the 3/8 inch guide. Oh, and I ran out of bobbin thread. All right, let me wind a new bobbin and we'll move on. At least it ran out while I was doing this and not while I was top stitching. So anyways, so I'm going to start back a few stitches, back stitch, and then keep going. I'm going to actually put some clips back in so it's holding it in the right spot. Because as I mentioned earlier, this faux leather is kind of slippery. Trying to get them back in approximately the same holes. Move over to the other side. Alright, so now I'm going to take my pinking shears and just go around these corners, trimming them down a bit. That's about all I can get. Alright, now we're going to reach in and pull the lining out. And then pull the bag out through the lining. All right. Sticking your hand back in, smoothing out all of the corners, the edges, the curves. poking out these curvy bits at the top. And this. And once you've got it all pushed out, you can grab the lining and push it inside the bag. And if your lining is stiffer than your exterior, then it could be fun. Oh, there we go. All right. Got that, and I'm going to start clipping. We want to have the gusset sides lined up, and you can, I see my stitches are coming out there. I may have to turn this bag back inside out and try and catch that again, but for now I'll do that off camera. For now, I'm just going to line things up, make sure that the gusset pieces are all lined up with the exterior gussets. And we want to make sure we roll these curves. This is going to be very thick to top stitch. I may have to squish it, and I'm definitely keeping my table off for this one. Again, to top stitch, you could push it down flat like that or turn it inside out. You can stick the lining gusset into the side seams there, and it lies nice and flat. Do the same for the other side. All right, I think I've got it all pressed out. I'm just going to work on the seams for a bit, and then I'm going to top stitch. When we come back, I'm going to top stitch it, and then we'll move on to the next section. All right, it's time to top stitch the bag. Now, some of these spots where the Kangaroo Pocket is attached are pretty thick, so I'm taking these pliers. They're flat, and they actually have like a rubbery coating on them, protected, and I'm putting it over the really thick parts, and I'm squeezing it because I'm trying to squish it down as much as I can. I've done the other side, so now I'm just doing these two. All right, there we go. Now I've got it on a number 5 stitch length, so I'm going to try and top stitch this. Find a good spot to start. Make sure all of the hardware is out of the way. Not sure I want to start in the center of something. I think I'm going to start just after this bump. Move my clips out of the way a bit. I'm going to actually top stitch at about 1/4 of an inch. It's really thick, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it at 1/8 of an inch. So if I do it at 1/4 of an inch, then it's a better chance that it'll look good. So I've got my needle down, I'm holding my threads. All right, so I'm getting close to a bump, so I'm going to grab my fabric again, put it behind my needle, and try and help it up on top of that hump of fabric. Alright, not too bad. My corners aren't quite as nice as I'd like them, but considering my pieces were off a bit, and I'm not sure why, I think it looks pretty good. So, just going to pull out the zipper tail, and grab my zipper slider, and now I'm going to add the zipper on. So just like everything else, put it on one side first, then the other. We've had this one on before, so not too big of a deal. So push it on. The reason I'm holding it down like this is because it doesn't want to stand up right now. There we go. And there's our recessed zipper. Pop these strap connectors up. Still need to close it up, so I'm going to put a clip in the end of this, and I'm going to move the zipper out as far as I can. Now I'm going to open the zipper pocket and pull out the zipper pocket, reach in again looking for the part of the bag that we haven't closed yet to the turning hole, and pull it through as best we can. Pull it through the pocket opening. It's a little tricky. So it keeps wanting to bring out the, there we go. It wants to bring out the zipper divider pocket, but all right, so we have the center snip that we added. And then we're going to just clip it in the center and straighten it out. Alright, and now I am going to start stitching. Before the end here, I'm going to start back a few stitches and go all the way past here. So I'm going to put it on a 3.5 because we want a joining. And grab my threads, make sure they're at the back, and I've got a hold of them. And it's pulling it off. Okay. Try and get it as close to being on the stitches we had as possible. There we go, we can push it back in now. Give the bag one more push, bottom. Push the lining into the bottom before we close up the zipper pocket. Pull the zipper pocket back out. Put your fingers in either side and pull it taut. put clips in along the edge. All right, now put this under the needle and we're going to stitch it at about 1/8 of an inch all the way across to close the pocket. All right, push the pocket back in. Bag's all closed up now. There we go. This may take a little bit to work in. So the gate rings, so I've got these, and what I'm gonna end up doing is using the gate rings are open like that. So one will go in one side, one will go in the other, and the single strap, so I'll do it on both sides. And then the single strap will go from one side to the other, like that. This will get tucked in. I will put the zipper end on at the end, like after, off camera. I'll do it later. So anyways, yeah, top stitching at 1/4 of an inch isn't bad. It looks okay to me. Oh, all right, so the last thing we need to do is make the shoulder strap and then attach it. All right, moving on to the strap. I've already marked the center of my straps and put some 1/2 inch double-sided tape down. I kept it out away from the ends because we're going to be stitching across there. So I've done it to both pieces. So now I'm going to take and put right sides together and put a clip in it, and I'll do it on either end. So it is right that we have one longer than the other. You'll see why after, if you haven't already seen this method before. So now I'm going to stitch it across. I'm just going to stitch it across at with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So I'm 3.5 stitch length. Yep. Alright, so now we're going to want to spread out. We're going to butterfly these seams, and actually I'm going to take a little bit off of either side to make it a little easier, or keep the edges from poking out. It makes it just a little bit cleaner. This part isn't in the pattern, this is just something I do. Alright, so I'm going to I only have my 1/4 inch tape with me, so I'm going to have to use 1/4 inch tape. So I'm going to spread it out, get some 1/4 inch tape ready, and butterfly the seam, and then I'm going to put tape all the way across the seam in the center. Ideally I would have brought my 1/2 inch tape with me, but I guess I left it at my sewing station. So now I'm going to take the tape off of this side, and I'm going to fold this edge down to the center, and I'll fold the other edge into the center as well, trying to keep this center seam even. So there we go. And now I'm going to work my way around. I'll strip off the tape for a bit, then I'll stick down the fabric. Do it on the other side, trying to butt it up as close as possible. And I'll just work my way around. And as we get around to this side, we're going to do the same thing. I've already snipped the edges off, but I'm going to put a piece of double-sided tape right down the center. And peel the tape and fold these into the center. Work my way back to where I left off. All right, now once we have this together, we're going to fold it, pull out either side, and try and make it even. So, see this fabric? This is why one is longer than the other, so it can wrap around nicely to the other side. So I'm just going to get out a ruler and measure. I'm thinking it's probably about an inch on either end. So yep, about an inch on either end. So I'm going to clip the ends, and then I'm going to go along and put some clips down the long edges. There. All right, so we've got it clipped on one side. I'm going to sew down at 1/8 of an inch. You can do it either way. You can start at 1/4 of an inch, or you can start with the 1/8 of an inch. I'm just going to start with the 1/8 of an inch, and then you go around with 1/8 of an inch, then you go around with 1/4 of an inch, and then you've got that double line of stitching, or 4 lines of stitching actually, all the way along. It makes it look really nice. I'm changing it to a 5 stitch length. And then we'll go all the way around. And there we go, we have a strap, and all we need to do now is add it to the bag. All right, so since we're using these gate rings and they can open, I'm just going to fold it over just past the bend, and I'm going to make some marks, at least one mark. I think, yeah, right in the middle. Where'd my pen go? All right, so I'm going to make a mark probably in about the middle of here, I'm going to do it about 1/2 inch up from the edge, and mark it right in the middle. Take out this ring, put a clip in it, and then I am going to punch a hole through everything, and then I'll put the rivet through everything. So the same will happen on this side. And since it's got this opening, I can do it without having it in there. So I'm marking it up 1/2 inch from the end, trying to get it in the center. The other thing I want to do is make sure that these have the same amount of fold over, which they're pretty close. So I will punch the hole and put the rivets in off camera. It's a little difficult right now to get the rivet press in position, and I don't really want to go set up at the on the table. I have like 2 rivet presses, one with a hole cutting die and one with the rivet to set the rivet. Not everybody has those. There are lots of instructions around on how to do it, and I may do a separate video. There are some, like I've done it in other videos, and I may do a separate one. All right, there we go. Saltwater shoulder bag, all done. The rings clip on to the D-rings there. Nice black matte hardware. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please give it a thumbs up, and if you could subscribe, that would be great. If you want to see another version of the saltwater shoulder bag, Brandy over at Beans, Bags and Handicraft Co. has done one, so go check out her YouTube channel. I will link it in the description box below. And yes, thanks again for watching.